Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be actually obtaining our API key, our base API URL, and our base image API URL from the API that we're going to be communicating with to actually get all of our movie data from. And the website that we're going to be using is going to be called themoviedb.org. Keep in mind that you will have to register an account with them, but getting an API key is free. So with that said, let's show you the process of what you have to do. So the first things first, you're going to register an account with them. That's instantaneous, verify your email, and you should be good to go. So once you're logged into the website, you're going to click on the actual profile that you have, and you're going to click on the actual settings section. Once you've clicked on settings, it's going to take you to this new kind of folder where you're going to go down to where you have API listed, and you're going to click on the API. And inside of here, if you go down, you're going to have a request form where you can request an API. I already have an API key. It's blurred just for security purposes, but you're going to copy this API and you're going to go back and you're going to paste this in for the API key and do command save. So once this is done, the next thing that you're going to do is that you are going to actually go to the primary documentation where you can have detail about all of the different endpoints that you can interact with, available at developers.themoviedb.org. And here, I'll just wait for the page to load. At the top, you're going to see that underneath of this main title, it says https://api.themoviedb.org/3. So that's the main base URL for the API. And we're going to copy this. So I'm going to copy link address. I'm going to go back and I'm going to paste that in for our base API URL. And don't forget to add the 3 at the end. So that is done as well. Now, the last thing that we need is going to be our base image URL. And for that, you're going to click on this section under getting started where it says images. And here it's going to give you an example of the different ways that you kind of link together the actual image name that it gives you along with the size of the image that you want alongside the URL. And in our case, we won't be like tinkering with this a lot. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to kind of like get the base part of the URL by just going to one of these, copy the link, going back to our actual base image API URL and then pasting it in, and then at the end I'm just going to remove the actual ending image name here and just leave the base image API URL at that. So this means that whenever I add a name to this URL, that's going to form a completed URL, and the size for the image that I'm going to be receiving is going to be the original size of like the poster size that image has, and we don't need anything other than that. So I'm going to do command save. And one thing that I'm going to mention to you before I end this video is that the API request form will take some time to be reviewed and then accepted. So keep this in mind before you actually start developing the application, that there might be a delay between you submitting the form and the relative authorities at themoviedb.org actually going over your application and approving it. But 99% of the time, everybody who sends a request gets approved. You can just type in why you need that API key, the same way that I did for educational purposes, that I'm following a YouTube tutorial, and they'll give the API key to you as well. Documentation that is provided to us by themoviedb.org, and we're going to be just going over some of the actual endpoints that we're going to be using to pull our data from. So without anything further, let's get into it. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to be going down to where we have our movie section, and we're going to be clicking on it. And then from here, we're going to be using the 2 endpoints that are provided to us. The first one being get popular, and then so that's this one, as well as get upcoming. And the upcoming would be this one. For get popular and get upcoming, the actual response is the same, but if you want to like later on in the course, once you're finished with it, you want to extend the functionality of the app further by including other endpoints, you can actually read about all of the requirements that they have on the actual individual endpoint documentation. So for example, if apart from having popular and upcoming videos, I would also want to get the ones that are similar. I can just click on get similar, and it'll provide to me like you have to do /movie/ the ID of the movie that you want similar movies to be provided to /similar. And then it'll tell you what type of response you can expect if you have a 200 response, if you have a 400, if you have a 404, and then inside of your actual response, what are each of the fields and what type of results do you expect from them. So this will help you tremendously in your actual development process. Secondly, another thing that I'd like to talk about is that regardless of whatever endpoint you use, the way that the images are returned. So if you remember, we copied over the base image API URL, and the reason we required that is because when we are going to be getting a response from the actual API regarding whatever endpoint that we hit, and if there is a image that is provided to us, it's going to be provided to us in a way that we're just going to get the path of the poster. As you can see here, for example, in our get popular, we're just getting a poster path, and this poster path is just going to be the string of the actual image, a name, followed by the extension of whatever. So is it an SVJ, is it a PNG, is it a JPEG, and that's all we get. And we'll take that poster path, and then what we'll do is that we'll take our base image API URL, we'll take that, we'll append our poster path to it, and that'll give us the complete URL, which then we can give to a widget like, for example, network image inside of Flutter to actually pull the image from. But before we can begin, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you a quick overview over the logic that we're going to be using to actually build our splash screen and then navigate on over to our actual home screen. So the way this is going to work is instead of having two different screens, we're going to have two different applications that are going to spin up inside of our Flutter application. And the way it's going to work is that we are going to firstly create a new splash app, you can say, which is going to show our splash screen, and then it's going to do all of the initialization stuff inside of it. And as soon as it's done with that, what we're going to do is that we're going to remove that application and create a new Flutter application by using the run app function that is used, and we're going to spin up a new application. So I think that it's something that sounds unconventional, and you might want to just maybe import a package that already gives you access to splash screen building abilities, but just keep in there and just keep following, and I am sure that by the time we're done with this module, you'll have a really good understanding of how we went about doing all of this. So now that that is said and done, let's get into the process of actually building our splash screen. And keep in mind that this is going to be a longer video, so I might break it into two videos, but for now we can just begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our main.dart file, and I'm going to remove all of the code that's in there, which for the myapp class, and I'll just keep the actual void main function. So before we can actually do something in the void main function, what I'm going to do is that I am going to create the actual splash screen class. So I'm going to call class splash screen, and then I'll call this extends, and we'll call this stateful and widget. And what I like to do is to keep the naming convention the same across of the application. Instead of calling this a splash screen, I'll call this a splash page. And then I'll do stateful widget, and then I'll just kind of open up the class. But I forgot one important thing is that we should always organize our code. So what I'm going to do is that inside of our lib folder, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder pages. Inside of the pages folder, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this file splash_page.dart. And then inside of our splash page, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually create our splash page class. So I'll put this in, and then at the top, I'm going to actually add my actual import for the material package for Flutter. So I'll do import, and then I'll do material dot and import it. So material.dart. So now that we've created the actual stateful widget class for our splash page, I'm going to actually define a attribute, which is going to be final void callback. And what is this going to do? Well, this is going to be a function that is going to be passed to our splash page, which is going to be called once all of the initialization inside of our splash page is done. So I'll call it void callback on initialization complete. And then what I'll do is that I'll define the actual builder function for our class. So I'll call const, and then I'll call it splash page, and then it'll take in two named arguments. The first is going to be a key of type key, and then the second is going to be a required parameter, and that is going to be this dot on this dot and then on initialization complete. And then with that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a super method. So I'm going to call the super classes base method by doing super and then passing it key and then key, and then doing Alt-Shift-F command save. And for now, I'm getting an error, as you can see, for our class, which says the splash page, since it extends stateful widget, needs to implement the create state function. So I'm going to quickly create the create state function, and then I'm just going to remove the actual implement create state comment, and then underneath of the actual class, I'm going to create the actual state class by calling it splash page. So just name it correctly, splash, and I don't know why I can't type splash page state, and that it extends state of type splash page. So this is just the basic concepts of Flutter. And then from there, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open it up, and then I'm going to create the build method inside of this. And for the build method, for now, what I'll do is I'll just return null, and then I'll take this splash page state, and instead of throwing an unimplemented error, I'll return our actual splash page state. And with this, what I'll do is that I'll do command save, and I'll remove this underscore here as well. And I do not know why it's giving me an error. Oh, yep, I see. Splash page. I actually didn't name them correctly. So now everything should be good. So we have our actual stateful class splash page. We have the create state method defined for it, and we have the build method defined for our splash page state class, which is the corresponding state class for our splash page. And we've also defined the actual constructor for our class. So what this constructor does is that takes a key and then a required parameter, which is on initialization complete. And then this on initialization complete is going to be a function that gets passed to it, which is going to be called once we're done with initialization. And then we call the constructor function for our actual base class. So with this, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do command save. I'm going to go back to our main.dart file. I'm going to actually import this by doing import and then // pages / and then we'll have splash underscore page .dart. And oh yeah, and we don't need to do we can just do / pages. So / pages / splash underscore page .dart, and then we can do command save, but it's giving me an error. / pages, yeah, that works. And then inside of here, instead of doing run app, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be running our splash page. So I do run app, and then inside of here, I'm going to call splash page. And then I'm going to, before I pass the on initialization complete, I'm going to pass it a key by doing key unique key. And then I'm going to pass in our actual on initialization complete function. And inside of here, for now, what I'll do is that I'll just do null, and then I'll just add the corresponding trailing. And let me see what the issue is. If I remove the actual, it says that expected a semicolon here, and it expected a semicolon as well. Yeah, command save and then add a comma here, and we should be good. So with this, I'm not going to run the app. I'm going to end this video here because this video has become quite long. And then I'm going to see you guys in the next video. We're going to continue building our splash page. So with that, I'm going to end this video here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.